I was 26 on December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas, when Lorene called and said, "Don't come. Verity doesn't need drama." I was standing in my apartment off Lincoln Boulevard, staring at the half-packed duffel I'd planned to toss in the car. One side had a wrapped puzzle I got for Verity. The other side had clean jeans and the boots I only wore when I had to look like I was trying. "Okay," I said. I didn't ask why, didn't argue, just stood there holding the phone while the hollow feeling hit like it always did. Same hollow one I'd had since Verity was born and I turned into furniture in my own family. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. I shoved the duffel under the bed, grabbed my keys, and drove toward the ocean. Didn't know where I was going, didn't care. Just pointed the truck west until I saw the pier, found a meter, and fed it the last quarters from my glove box. A ticket was already tucked under my wiper. Perfect. Salt and Lantern was a spot I knew, mostly because the food was cheap and they didn't blast music. I hit the restroom, splashed water on my face, and pushed one tear back in like I'd done 1,000 times. Walking out, I caught the eye of a guy in a navy blazer who didn't look like he belonged near surf. Ex-military vibe, squared up but easy. Later he introduced himself, Keaton Hale, retired fire captain. Said he saw me pay the parking ticket at the bar, then just sit there staring at cold fries. I told him I was fine, which wasn't true. He didn't push. "Come sit with us," he said. "No charity, just company." The table was loud, people interrupting each other, finishing stories like they'd done it every week for years. I slid in near the end, next to a guy named Rowan and across from a woman with sharp green eyes who didn't say much. An older woman at the head of the table moved like a judge off duty. After dinner, their friend Delia's SUV wouldn't start. I popped the hood, checked the terminals, tapped the starter like I'd done a dozen times for friends who didn't say thanks. It turned over. Keaton clapped me on the back. "Sunday dinners, Palomari's Highlands. If you show, there's a plate. If not, we'll ask again." "I'll think about it," I said, and I meant it. I pulled up slow to the Hale house, killed the engine, and just sat there. Porch light was already on, even though it wasn't dark yet. I watched it glow through the front windows like the house was breathing steady. 4 minutes passed before I finally knocked. Maris opened the door like she'd been waiting for me since last Sunday. She was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt that said "Rules are kind" across the front. She looked me right in the eye and said, "You're late by about a decade," then smiled and stepped aside. The smell hit me fast. Garlic, roasted something, maybe pie. I stepped in, nodded at Keaton as he carried a tray into the kitchen and got halfway through, taking off my boots before Rowan walked by and shoved a folded chair into my arms. "We rotate. You carve, clean, or grab last roll. Nobody hoards here," he said, like that was normal Sunday talk. He pointed to the den. "Park it near the piano. Dinner's almost up." Juniper, the older of the two little ones, showed up next to me like I'd been summoned. Merritt followed behind her with a juice box and zero fear. Juniper sniffed the air near my hands and said, "You smell like engines." I didn't bother with a cute answer. "I inspect cars for auctions. Not a mechanic, just crawl under and write stuff down." Merritt tilted her head like a puppy. "Even the stinky parts?" "Especially those." They both cracked up and ran off like I'd passed some test I didn't know I was taking. The dining room was tight, but no one acted like they were making room. Keaton carved roast chicken while Phoebe, Rowan's sister, brought out a bowl of peas and said something to her niece about tide pools and barnacle toes. She didn't talk down, just shared like everyone could follow. When I sat down, Rowan handed me a roll without asking. Maris said grace quick and clean, no drama, just thanks, and passed the cobbler like it was a final exam. Over dessert, she locked onto me. "Who calls you first when there's news?" she asked. No build-up, just straight in. I shrugged. "Usually nobody." She nodded once. "Who cancels plans most?" "Lorene." "And who gets forgiven fastest?" I hesitated. "Verity." She leaned back, picked up her fork again, and set it flat. "When families need a scapegoat, the quiet kid will do." Then she moved on to talking about someone's leaking hose bib, like she hadn't just dropped a hammer on my chest. After dinner, Rowan asked if I could help with a sticking garage door. I followed him out, found the tension screw was overcranked, loosened it a hair, and the door groaned up like it had new lungs. "You just earned your second Sunday," he said, brushing off his hands. Driving home, I kept the radio off. I didn't feel like background noise. No one had said I was too much. They just made room, handed me a roll, and gave me a job. When I hit Lincoln, I parked, kicked my boots off at the door, and passed out without checking my phone. First full night of sleep I'd had in weeks. The next Sunday, Juniper passed me the first biscuit like it was her assigned job. No one said anything about it. She just did it like I'd always been there, and honestly, it hit harder than it should have. One night after cleanup, Maris sat with me while I dried the last tray. I told her about the Christmas call, the part where Lorene said, "Don't come," like it was a decision made by the weather. Maris didn't blink. She just asked, "When's the last time someone from their side called first? Not responded, initiated." I had to stop wiping for a second. I don't know. Maybe when Verity broke her wrist in 7th grade. That's not a call. That's triage. She took me through the whole scapegoat system like she'd done it before, the way quiet kids learn to absorb tension so the favorite doesn't have to feel it. How being easy to blame gets called being difficult. It wasn't cruel the way she said it, just blunt and clean, like she was reading off an invoice. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said. "You just stopped fitting the version of the story they liked." That line sat with me all week. By Sunday, I'd memorized it. Phoebe and I started trading dumb memes and half-sarcastic links at 1 in the morning. No pressure, no flirting, just stuff that made us laugh. When her shifts lined up right, we'd meet at the beach and sit on the cold sand, watching harbor seals roll through the kelp like they owned the place. She didn't try to fix anything in me, she just listened. Most days I was crawling under used cars at the auction yard, flashlight in one hand, clipboard in the other. I wasn't a mechanic, I just called condition like I saw it. Rust, note it. Frame damage, note it. That kind of honesty started bleeding into other parts of my life without me trying. I sent Harold a Merry Christmas text, just those words. He sent back a thumbs up emoji and nothing else. No, you too, no, hope you're well. Just the little yellow hand floating in a void. I didn't reply. Aunt Nettie, his sister, liked a photo I posted of the pier around sunset. Later that night, she messaged me, "You doing okay, kid?" That was all she wrote, but it was something. Lorene, of course, posted the polished family photo. Table set for 4, Verity glowing like a holiday ad, no empty chair, no wish you were here, just perfection and soft light. At dinner that week, Keaton asked if I could check the basement smoke detector. The week after, he handed me a drill and pointed to a shelf in the laundry room that had been leaning for a year. They didn't treat it like a test or a debt. They just let me be useful without making it a spotlight. After dessert one night, Maris said something that stopped the air. "You don't need a diagnosis to set a boundary." She said it while stacking plates. Not dramatic, not performative, just truth in motion. I grabbed a pen out of my back pocket, found a folded receipt from the gas station, and scribbled it down. That paper stayed in my wallet from then on. Driving home later that night, I felt something shift. Not a breakthrough, not a fix. Just the beginning of seeing things clear, like undercarriage rust I couldn't unsee once I'd spotted it. By the end of the second year, Sundays weren't something I hoped for. They were the anchor. Everything else in my week moved around them. I quit bending myself into a shape someone else would clap for. If they weren't looking, I wasn't performing. Rowan started calling me Uncle Bray, just to mess with me. His kids, of course, dropped the joke part. I was Uncle Bray whether I earned it or not. I didn't correct them. I liked hearing it too much. Phoebe invited me to this outreach thing her aquarium group was doing, tide pool education for elementary kids. I figured I'd carry gear and stay out of the way. Instead, I stood back and watched her crouch beside a shallow pool like it was sacred ground. She told one group, "You treat this space like it's your neighbor's fence. You don't climb it, you don't break it, you respect the edge." No one drifted, even the loud kids stayed with her. Afterwards, I said, "You ever think about teaching full-time?" She said, "Nah, I'd hate grading, but outreach I love." We didn't date, not yet. We just moved closer in tiny shifts. I knew better than to wreck a good thing by rushing it. What we had was steady and real. Friendship first, the kind that doesn't blow over when life starts kicking sideways. One night after dinner, Keaton told a story from his rescue days. Said he pulled a guy out of a burning second-floor window and the man wouldn't stop apologizing for the smoke, the mess, the timing. We all laughed, but it hit weird. Table went quiet after. I looked at my plate and realized I apologized like that, for everything, for nothing, for just being in the room. Later that month, I asked Phoebe to meet me at Salt and Lantern again, same corner booth where Keaton had waved me over 2 years back. I wore the decent flannel and boots with no scuffs. Hands were shaking under the table. I didn't plan a speech. Just sat across from her and said, "I'm not good with big moments, but I pick you. Every day. You already know that. I just wanted to say it out loud." She didn't make a face, didn't freeze, just smiled like she'd been waiting for me to catch up. Then reached across the table and took my hand. About a minute later, my phone buzzed. Delia had texted a photo from the parking lot. Keaton and Rowan were outside, pretending they weren't staring through the restaurant window like two teenagers pulling recon. I turned the phone so Phoebe could see. She laughed, leaned closer. "Guess we're not subtle," she said. I cleared my throat. "So, I'm asking, officially, will you be my girlfriend?" She grinned, tilted her head. "You already are." I laughed hard, louder than I meant to. Couple heads turned, but I didn't care. Driving home, the road looked different. It felt like something finally unlocked. For the first time in years, I let myself think about building something with my name on the door, something solid, a shop, a space, not just a job with someone else's key ring. And the thing was, it didn't scare me. About a month before I planned to propose, I stopped at a mini-mart on Harbor after work. I meant to grab gas and a bottle of water. Instead, I grabbed the wrong scratcher off the counter because the clerk handed it to me without asking. I almost told him to switch it, but I didn't bother. I scratched it in the truck with a quarter from the cup holder. It was a 7-figure win. I sat there staring at the numbers like they were written in another language. After taxes, after fees, after every hand took its cut, I cleared about $3.4 million. I drove home slow, window cracked, heart pounding like I'd just outrun something. I didn't tell anyone for a week. Not Phoebe, not the Hales. I walked around with it in my head like a loaded secret. Every time someone laughed at dinner, I wondered if they'd look at me different once they knew. I needed to be sure I wouldn't. The following Sunday, I stayed late at Keaton and Maris's kitchen table. I laid the paperwork down between the salt and pepper like it was another plate. Keaton poured coffee first. Maris didn't touch the papers. She looked at me instead. "Slow feet," she said. "Smart paper." Keaton nodded once. "Money doesn't fix bad wiring. It just gives it power." I told them I wanted to build something steady, something that didn't feel like luck. They didn't cheer. They didn't panic. They asked about accountants, lawyers, timelines. It felt solid. I proposed to Phoebe back at Salt and Lantern, same booth, same table where this whole thing shifted years ago. My hands shook so bad I had to set the ring box down before I dropped it. "I don't need fireworks," I said. "I just need you. Will you marry me?" She covered her mouth, eyes wet but steady. "Yes, of course yes." 2 booths over, the Hales pretended to be shocked. Sparkling water glasses lifted like they'd just witnessed a sporting event. It was obvious and perfect. A few months later, I signed the lease on Seaforth Motors in Ventura. I kept it simple, mid-mileage cars from auction, tight pricing, fast turnover, 7 days, no questions, asked returns. People told me it was reckless. "It'll kill your margins," one guy warned. I told him churn beats haggling. If someone brought it back, we relisted it. No guilt, no pressure, just clean deals. We added free Saturday diagnostics for single parents and caregivers, no sales talk. I stood by the lift and explained things straight. "Your brakes are thin but safe for now. You've got maybe 3 months," I'd say. "Here's the estimate, no rush." Word spread. Lorene sent an email about partnering for a glossy charity day. Cameras, banners, speeches, I replied once. "We keep it low-key, service first, no step and repeat." She never answered back. Harold showed up one afternoon with a clipboard, said he was just checking in as a city building inspector. I handed him every permit, every inspection report, already tabbed and signed. He flipped through them, lips tight, found nothing to say. I hired 3 guys I trusted from the auction world, hard workers, no ego. Reviews stacked up from people who were tired of being talked down to. Phoebe and I booked the wedding for late spring at a vineyard in Santa Ynez. I hired Otis Gray for security because I like clean edges and backup plans. 6 months before the wedding, Verity sent me a letter. Not online, not public, handwritten. She said I'd been right about a lot of things, and she'd played along because it was easier. I didn't answer right away. I folded it once and slid it into my desk drawer. Word of the win, and the shop spread like spilled oil on concrete. Nobody from the Dawkins side called. They just started showing up. Lorene was first. She strolled into Seaforth like it was her showroom, trailing a guy with a DSLR and a folder labeled Brand Alignment Talking Points. I was behind the counter eating half a sandwich and sorting title packets. "We're thinking crossover," she said like we were partners. Charity angle. I'd handle the promo. You bring the heart. I didn't even look at the folder. We keep our work quiet. Free inspections. We don't stage promos. She didn't argue. She just turned to the photographer and said, "We're done here." He walked out. So did her smile. Harold stayed back, arms folded, eyes low. She tossed a final line over her shoulder like it was nothing. "That return policy? Bad for margins?" I nodded once. "We're not margin first." He didn't say a word, just followed her out, the door slamming a little too hard behind him. A few days later, Nettie showed up with a pie in a foil pan, some kind of fundraiser deal with a church sticker on the lid. She didn't ask for a tour, didn't even sit down, just handed me the pie and gave me a look that said she wasn't ready to say what she'd come to say. I didn't push. That night, I brought it to the Hale house. Maris cut 2 slices and said, "Church pie always has a hidden raisin. Watch your bite." Keaton waited until dessert to bring up security. "Might be time to loop Otis into the vendor threads," he said, "before it's game day." He wasn't wrong. Otis got back to me an hour later asking for maps, floor plans, a full list of vendors and guest entries. "No surprises," he said. I liked the way his brain worked. The next Thursday I checked the mailbox and found something heavy inside. An envelope addressed in Lorene's handwriting with no return address. Inside was a single invite, penciled lightly on the back. "Reserved for family Dawkins. No RSVP, no message." I tossed it in the kitchen trash and didn't miss. That weekend, I got a DM from a burner account. No name, no photo. Just, "Can we meet?" No photos, just talk. It was Verity. I picked a coffee shop off Ventura Road, one that didn't ask questions or play loud music. She walked in wearing a hoodie and sunglasses like she thought someone would be watching. We sat outside. "I know Mom's wrong," she said straight out. "I just didn't want to pick sides and lose both." I didn't nod. I didn't console her. "I'm not here to fight," I told her. "But if you show up, it has to be clean. No camp switching to play both ends online. No angles, just show up." She nodded once. "Okay, clean." That night, I pulled Otis aside while we were finalizing vendor routes. "Be ready for walk-ins," I said. He glanced up from the tablet and said, "Copy that," like he didn't need the backstory. Later, in bed, Phoebe turned toward me, her voice low but clear. "If they come, we don't hide," she said. "We just do the plan." I looked at her and said, "Okay." The sun came up clean over Santa Ynez, not a cloud in the sky. I stood still while the coordinator clipped a boutonniere to my jacket like it was breakable. Keaton stood beside me, calm as a fence post, hands clasped like he had all the time in the world. The program said, "Honorary parents of the groom, Keaton and Maris Hale." No asterisks, no explanations. That's what they were. Anyone who didn't get it could keep it to themselves. We said our vows under the oak limbs, light cutting through in lines, like something out of a memory I hadn't lived yet. Phoebe looked at me like I was the answer to a question she didn't need to ask anymore. As I took her hands, every heavy piece of my 20s dropped off like bad weight. The room in my chest came back. During cocktails, Otis approached from the edge of the patio. No panic, just presence. "2 arrivals at the gate," he said, "calling themselves your parents. You want the call?" I looked past him toward the road. I could have said no. I didn't owe them airspace, but that wasn't the plan. "Let them in," I said. "Seat them in the back, not at family tables." Otis gave a nod like a security guard and a friend at once. "Understood." By the time we hit toasts, the MC was already on the mic. I stepped up, took it gently, and asked the room to thank the people I call Mom and Dad, Keaton and Maris Hale. I didn't add anything flowery, just the facts. Applause came like surf, loud, rolling, full. I caught Lorene's face in the rear row, confused. Her hand clenched Harold's sleeve like she thought he'd say something stupid, and he did. "We took you in when doctors said no kids," he barked, loud enough to slice through everything. The room went completely still. Chairs shifted. Glasses froze midair. Someone whispered my name like a warning. Otis and 2 of his crew moved instantly, not aggressive, just clean. In the moment, I didn't speak. I didn't storm or cry or freeze. I stood there and let it hit. Maris was suddenly at my left, hand on my shoulder, warm, steady. Keaton didn't flinch, just stared Harold down like a captain watching smoke build behind a sealed door. Harold shoved something into Otis's arms as they steered him toward the edge of the lobby. Later, Otis would bring it to my office in a plastic bag, a worn hospital folder, very old, with a baby bracelet, an infant ID card, and a typed note from a physician. That was later. Right then, I took the mic again. "I don't hold anger," I said. "I've made peace. But from here on, it's only from a distance." The breath that came back into the room felt earned. The music resumed. Otis got them out of the reception area without force, just direction. He stationed them near the lobby door, far enough that they couldn't sneak back into any photo or conversation. I didn't look back. I let the moment pass, let it roll off. There was nothing more for them to say. I turned back to Phoebe, who had never once looked rattled. Her hand found mine again like we hadn't just had a scene break out mid-celebration. I heard Maris telling someone at the cake table, "Family is built, period." I couldn't have said it better if I tried. The rest of the night moved like a smooth tide. First dances, stories from the Hales side, laughing kids running between tables with dessert forks they weren't supposed to have. By the end, Otis gave me a nod from across the room, a quiet signal. "Handled." I nodded back. 2 days after the wedding, Nettie walked into Seaforth carrying a paper sack like she was dropping off groceries. I was at my desk pretending to focus on invoices, but my head was still at the vineyard. "You got somewhere with a chair?" she asked. I led her to the small office in back. She sat down slow, hands folded tight around the sack. "When you were a baby," she said, voice low, "the doctors told Lorene and Harold they couldn't have kids. They were done. That was the story." I didn't interrupt. Then Verity happened, unexpectedly, and everything shifted. Suddenly, you were the practice round. The miracle came second. She looked at me like she expected me to flinch. I didn't. I just leaned back and let it land. "I fought her once," Nettie said, "about how you were treated. I told her she was freezing you out. She didn't talk to me for almost a year after that. Family dinners, holidays, everything. I should have pushed harder." "You did something," I said. "That counts." She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Before she left, she squeezed my shoulder like she was trying to make up time. Later that afternoon, Otis stopped by with 2 coffees and that same neutral expression he wore at the wedding. He shut the office door behind him and set a worn folder on my desk. "Here's what he dropped," he said. "Came out of his jacket when we redirected him." The folder was scuffed at the corners, old enough to smell like a filing cabinet. Inside was a hospital bracelet with a faded number and the words, "Male, 7 pounds," printed in thin ink. There was an infant card with a time stamp and a typed physician note clipped to a social worker's card I'd never seen before. I didn't feel shock. I felt confirmation. The math had always been there. I just never said it out loud. "Anything else I should know?" I asked. Otis shook his head. That was the loudest part. After he left, I sat alone with the folder open on the desk. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just breathed steady. That evening, I called Keaton and Maris on speaker from the kitchen at home. "I got the paperwork," I said. "It's real," Keaton answered first. "You don't owe us thanks," Maris added. "You did the hard part. You built something better." After we hung up, I wrote Verity a note by hand. No email, no public reply, just paper. I told her I saw her letter. I heard what she said. My door was unlocked, but not wide open. If she wanted in, it would be clean and honest. I sealed it before I could overthink it. That night, lying next to Phoebe, I said, "I don't want to chase more answers. I've got enough." She brushed her thumb across my knuckles and said, "Then that's enough." We turned the lights out early. For the first time, the word adopted felt like a fact. Not a weapon, not a bruise, just a fact. And I closed my eyes and slept. Business at Seaforth picked up because people talked, not through ads or gimmicks, just steady neighbor talk. Someone brought their car in for a noise. We found a loose heat shield, tightened it, and charged nothing. They told their cousin, who told their coworker. The lot started filling before noon most Saturdays. I launched No Sales Talk Wednesdays after one customer broke down in the parking lot and said she wasn't ready to buy, just scared. We started offering free inspections those days, first come, first served. Single parents got first pick of the slots. One morning, Lorene posted a long, slick caption online about too good to be true warranties and marketing masquerading as kindness. Tried to paint Seaforth like some PR stunt. Didn't even use my name, just hinted. It flopped hard. Customers piled into the comments, screenshots of receipts, videos of check returns, a full thread of folks saying they didn't upsell me, they actually told me not to buy yet. The post disappeared by sunset. Harold showed up again, this time alone. He walked slower, hands in his jacket like he didn't know what to do with them. I was a coward, he said, eyes still on the floor. I let the silence sit. I already knew that, I finally said, but saying it helps. He nodded like he'd practiced that part but didn't know what came next. Could we talk again sometime? He asked. At arm's length, Dad. That's what I have. That's what I'm offering. He took it. No protest, no plea, just nodded again and left with his shoulders down. Nettie came by a few days later with a folded photo. Me, age 3, sitting in the dirt with a toy dump truck. She said I used to hum when I played. She didn't know the tune, just remembered it was low and steady. Said it was the only time I seemed completely safe. Phoebe and I bought a place up in the Ojai foothills. Not huge, just enough yard for a grill, a swing, and breathing space. The kind of home you could fill up with people you chose, not ones you tolerated. Keaton brought over a ladder the second weekend, made me promise to return it, which I never did. I think he knew that. Maris came by with a framed print that read, "We choose." She hung it in the hallway near the front door. It caught the morning light just right. Delia showed up the next day with an old portable jump pack and a note stuck to the side. For the next parking lot rescue. We both laughed. I shelved it next to the breaker box. On a quiet Saturday, Verity pulled up alone. No warning, just her and a water bottle. We walked under the pepper trees behind the property and talked for about an hour. Not deep stuff, just normal. Weather, food, the dumb things kids say. At one point she stopped and asked, "Can I visit sometimes?" "Yeah," I said, "but it's on new rules. No pressure, no sides, just people." She didn't argue. That night we ate pho on the porch with our shoes off. Wind moved through the grass and the light stayed soft. It tasted better than every Christmas I ever faked at the Dawkins' table. Now I'm older, and I tell this straight. I forgave a long time ago. I just don't go back in. At our wedding, when I called Keaton and Maris my mom and dad, it wasn't a shot across the room. It was a truth spoken out loud, in front of the people who've carried weight with me. It was for them, not against anyone else. The other truth, the one I never had to dig for, came straight out of Harold's mouth. Loud, unplanned, and panicked. I'm adopted. That's it. It fit like it had always been there. I didn't need paperwork to tell me what I'd already known in my gut since I was tall enough to notice the silence around me. Otis told me the hallway details later, the argument, the folder, how Harold almost turned back, then left anyway when Otis blocked the door. Nettie filled in the blanks after. Her version was softer, but no less honest. I didn't have to be there. I'd heard enough from the ones who were. Keaton never tried to replace anything. He just carried plates, fixed hinges, asked about oil changes like it mattered. Maris didn't micromanage or parent me. She just held the lines tight and told the truth without cruelty. Phoebe, she opened the kind of steady I didn't know people were capable of. No lectures, just presence. Seaforth Motors is simple on purpose. We don't do polish. We buy decent auction cars, price them fair, and if someone misjudges a fit, we take it back for 7 days. No arguing, no guilt trip. It works because it's not complicated. It works because people remember being talked to like they mattered. Lorene still does big events. Harold still signs off on city permits. They can have that life. I don't need it. I don't check their calendars. And I absolutely don't let their moods shape mine. Verity texts now and then. Sometimes she drives up to Ojai with a bag of bagels or nothing at all. We sit under the pepper trees in the back, no agenda, no scorekeeping. It's better that way. Just people, not sides. If there's any revenge in all this, it's quiet. I didn't flame out. I didn't blow up bridges or torch the family name. I just built a life without their approval, and I filled it with the ones who showed up when it counted. That's enough. When people ask where I'm from, I say, from a table that had room for one more. And when they ask about the Dawkinses, I say, the line I live by now. I say it plain every time, no resentment. I keep it arm's length. Would you have let them in at the wedding or closed the door for good? And where would you draw your arm's length line? If you have hype, please tap it, and please like, subscribe, and leave a comment to share where you stand.